Hello out there! Today I'm going to talk a bit about one of my favorite inspirations and subject matter, which is the tarot. If you're familiar with my work, you probably already know I make lots of pieces inspired by tarot cards. I thought it would be fun to show you my small deck collection today. I've got tarot decks as well as oracle card decks, but in total it's no more than 10, I think. When I first got into the tarot, I was trying to build a large collection of decks, and then as I became more familiar with actually using a deck every day or pulling the cards or getting to know their meanings, I realized I actually just prefer to have a couple decks that I return to regularly, and then I still have some that I appreciate for their art and like to pull every once in a while from. I thought I'll show my tarot deck collection and then after that pick a card of the day and do a drawing prompt, because that's something that I will do often if I don't know what kind of subject matter I want to work with for a piece. So I'll show you how I literally use the tarot to decide what direction I go in every once in a while. I've actually got this lavender top that I thrifted the other day. It's a J. Crew top. I got it from Pearl Street Vintage in Red Bank, New Jersey. I figured I could draw a layout for an embroidery design that I'll do on that top with whatever card I pick and the inspiration I get from it. Anyways, I think I can move on to showing you my deck collection. So I've organized my decks into two piles. These are my oracle decks, also known as angel cards or angel decks. And then these are my more traditional tarot decks. I'm actually going to start with my oracle decks and specifically the Road to Nowhere deck, which is one of my very favorites. And I would say this deck is what got me interested in the tarot to begin with. It's by Mary Evans, who is a really cool artist. I'm not sure if I had heard of her before getting this deck, but once I discovered it, I started following her online and stuff, and I really love all of the different arts that she does. Besides making tarot cards and doing magic related things, she also has a really cool art practice that involves like painting and sculpture, paper mache. All around is a real joy to follow what she's up to. I got this deck when I was traveling in Joshua Tree. I was on a little Southern California vacation by myself, and I was in this shop called The End, which is a vintage shop, and I saw this deck and it just called to me between the different quilt collages, the fact that it's called Road to Nowhere, which is a Talking Heads song that I really love, and then a lot of the collage involves quilts as well as crocheted stuff, and it's really great. It's very sweet. I think no matter what, there's a really cool message for any card you end up picking. Some of them are reflective of the tarot, like there's a chariot card in traditional tarot, but oracle decks in general are going to be more creative, not necessarily follow the structure of the tarot, and I really enjoy that. It's a great thing to just pick a card and then take that with you as a little fortune for the day. That's that one. And when I got this for myself, I also got one of Mary's decks called Iris, but that was a gift from my sister. So sometimes when I'm at her house, we'll pick from the Iris deck as well. The Iris deck is also an oracle deck. I love the way Mary writes also. It's just very encouraging. There's a lot of wisdom in these cards. The next deck I have here is called The Animal Spirit by Kim Kranz, and I guess she has like a wild unknown collection of cards. I pick from this a lot with Lewis and with Carlin, my sister. We kind of consider it what's our animal of the day sort of thing. The art is really sweet, and I really love the structure of the book. They divide it into all the elements: water, fire, air, and earth. Each of those categories has a bunch of animals in it. This is fire, is lizard, earth is mouse. And so when you pick a card, you get a reading as well, like we'll find butterfly. It's always really sweet as well and encouraging and just kind of sets a nice tone for the day. I'm trying to find butterfly, but anyways, you get the idea. And then they also have these spirit cards that are extra special. You can get one of these magical readings and they correlate to the chakras. So that's cool. I really like this book. It's very sweet. I've had it for a good amount of time and it's pretty delightful whenever we use it. That's that. The next oracle deck I have is the Tantric Dakini Oracle by Nick Douglas and Penny Slinger. This is a very cool deck that I believe I first saw at my friend Sarah's house. She's a professional tarot card reader and she was showing me all of her decks. She has a pretty insane collection of tarot decks. And she took this one out specifically to show me because she knew I would enjoy the art on here. It's inspired by Eastern traditions, so there's a lot of symbolism that relates to that, and it's also cool that it's psychedelic collages. They're pretty funky, and yeah, I really appreciate the art in here, and I haven't spent too much time with the book, but also has great fortune type meanings and explanations. I think it's pretty great. It's interesting. I should spend more time with this. Okay, next up is this oracle deck. It's called the Daemon Tarot, the Forbidden Wisdom of the Infernal Dictionary by Ariana Osborne. This is funny because I normally wouldn't be drawn to something like this, but my sister got this for me, so I guess it's kind of more her taste, but it's still very enjoyable and surprisingly optimistic and interesting in how it gives its messages. So I'm not very familiar with the different demons. I like this deck because it kind of reminds me of Hieronymus Bosch in how weird the art is. Oh, we've got this one. I don't know what to say about this one, but I do have it. I don't pick from it too frequently, but sometimes, and there's always something interesting. I'd say there's still inspiration to be gathered from here, but anyways, that's that. That's another one I have. Probably one that like I would maybe pass on to someone else who might be interested in it, if not for it being a gift, just because I don't pull from it too often. I do prefer some of my other decks. Those are all of my oracle decks, so now I can move on to the tarot decks. So I'll begin with my classic Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, and then I also have the mini version of the Rider-Waite deck, and then this used to be a full Rider-Waite deck that I have since just kind of made a little pile of all of the major arcana cards. These are the ones that I tend to work with the most for things like my tarot inspired gloves and different pieces. This is the one that I use the most, and I like that it's the deck that credits Pamela Coleman Smith, the artist who did all of the artwork. This is what I pull from the most when I'm using a tarot deck. This is my favorite deck for sure. And it's the same art, just slightly different color than these decks, which are a brighter color and then also have the white border around it. I figure later when I pick a card for the purple top that I want to embroider, I'll pick from this deck just because it's my favorite, and that's how we will figure out our card of the day as well as our drawing prompt. This is just the mini version of the Rider-Waite that I used to keep in my purse, and it was really fun to have for on-the-fly tarot readings when I was really into practicing giving people readings. I don't know, it was a fun social thing to do if I was ever in a group of people, to just start doing card readings. A nice icebreaker. So that's that. This one here is quite old. As you can see, this is kind of beat up, and it's the Aquarian Tarot deck by David Palladini. I love this deck because the art is very 1970s, does Baroque, Biba, Art Nouveau, Art Deco style. You know, there's a lot going on, and I love the color story of it. It's got just the traditional lineup of the cards with the major arcana and the minor arcana, the swords, cups, pentacles, wands, or I think they call it rods in this one, but the art's beautiful. And then also, like, I'm an Aquarius and I love the 70s. I love picking from this deck. I'll probably keep this forever. This is my second most used deck. Anyways, yeah, that's that one. The next one I've got here is the Spolia deck, written by Jessa Crispin, and the artwork is by Jen May. And I heard about this deck on the podcast The Witch Wave by Pam Grossman. I just really liked that episode, and then I looked up the deck afterwards, and I thought the collage art was really cool. This deck is like a traditional tarot deck, but then it also has cards for the elements. And then it also has cards for each of the astrological signs. So it's a little extra. It's difficult to shuffle because it's so thick, but all of the art is really cool. I love the color schemes in here. It's very magical. The book is really funny too. The little sayings they have in it are pretty saucy. It's just fun to use because of how visually stunning the cards are. It's a little change of pace too from the traditional deck. But anyways, that's that. And then the last deck I have here is the Autonomic Tarot by Sophie Hollington. Well, the art is by Sophie Hollington, and then I have a supplementary book by David Keenan. I think this little one is also by David Keenan, but I have another book that I got separately that had some poetry that had to do with these cards. I love the art of Sophie Hollington. Seeing this deck is how I discovered her artwork and prints and stuff, and now follow her online. This deck is structured a little differently, where it's all of the major arcana cards. I think art is in place of temperance, and then there's like 2 cards for cups, one for the Ace of Cups and one for 10 of Cups, and then 2 cards for swords and wands. It's a little more artistic in its layout, but it's still a really cool deck to pull from. And I had originally seen this also at my friend Sarah's house, and then later looked it up myself because I wanted to get my own copy of it. I think they're pressed. They're a really nice quality of cards. I love the back as well. But yeah, that's another deck I've got. And then bonus, I also have a Dolly deck, but I don't really use it very often, and that's because it is in this big giant purple velvet book thing, and I'll show it to you on my shelf. So in our kitchen we have all these books, and there's the Dolly Tarot. And it's just this like massive collector's book thing that is on the bottom of all these other books, and I never want to take it down. So yeah, I forget that I even have it, and I definitely don't pick cards from it very often, even though the cards are very beautiful. The Dolly deck is probably something that I will donate or give away or try to sell or something down the line, even though I like the cards, I just don't use it. The whole collector's case thing is too much for me to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and I'll show some of the cards that are featured on that deck that I find on the internet, but anyways, that's that. That's my little tarot collection. And now I will pick a card from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and draw out something to embroider on that purple ruffle top. Okay, so the way I like to shuffle is I shuffle the cards 4 times. I like to knock on the deck, and then I split the deck, and then I pick from the top pile. So I'm just going to pick 1 card and see what happens, but sometimes I'll do a 3-card pick, or sometimes a bit more of an elaborate spread. But let's see what we've got. Okay, we've got the Knight of Swords reversed, which normally I honor reversals, but since this is for a shirt that I want to sell, I want it to be a bit more of a positive twist on it. Okay, so let's draw out a design on this thrifted top that's inspired by the Knight of Swords. Here's this top. This is a very lightweight cotton, so I know that when I'm embroidering this, I'm gonna want to do a bit more finer threads than what I usually do, which is just keeping the 6 strands of embroidery floss. So knowing that I'm gonna be splitting threads because of how thin the fabric is makes me think that I'm gonna wanna do tiny motifs on here, nothing too big and chunky that would weigh down the fabric. I'll kind of talk through my process. So right off the bat, things things that I'm inspired by are the fact that it's a sword, it's an air sign card. So I love the clouds, I love the sword. There's a white horse, or it's kind of grayish actually, that is jolting forwards. Those are motifs that I'm like already thinking of drawing out to put on here. Sword, cloud, horse. I like that there's a little heart on the horse's, I don't know what you call that, harness thing. I think these are like seagulls or something. It's some kind of pattern on here, but to me it reminds me of flying seagulls, and then there's more flying seagulls up here. I also love the bird pattern on the knight's like dress coat thingy. There's also trees on here. So these are all motifs that I'm thinking of pulling out and drawing on here to embroider. The meaning of this card is very action oriented and fast thinking. It has to do with your mental state because it's an air affiliated card. It's about being driven to succeed and being ambitious. You're charging ahead with purpose and a mission. Since this is our card of the day, I mean, technically it was reversed, so I think that means that you're feeling unfocused and maybe even burnt out. But if I go with the upright meaning, I think it's about having your mind set on something and not giving up. I think it's a reminder to be assertive about getting what you want and not necessarily just waiting around for something to happen. That's the message that I would give if I pulled this for someone else. And also, I guess that's the message of the day because this is the card of the day. So, okay, let's start drawing. Drawing a running horse or a horse in general is not easy, and I am using a reference image on Pinterest to help me look at the anatomy and try to make this look as much like a horse as I can muster. I don't want it to be too big, and the embroidery is not going to be crazy complex. Also mention I love the butterflies on the horse's decorative, and there's also little birds on that reflect these. Just a little flower on the helmet that I think is cool, so I might work with some of those motifs as well. Okay, you guys, this is what I came up with. I have a weird temptation to write out Knight of Swords up here above the sword, like it has on the card, in a little arc. Let me know in the comments if you think that's a good or bad idea. Usually I regret adding words to embroidered pieces, but for some reason I just think that'd be really fun and cute with this like weird ruffle top. So yeah, the card helped inspire these little motifs. I'm not totally sure whether I will fill in these when I embroider them. Like I could either make it a kind of pale gray horse or just stitch the outlines like I sometimes do. I kind of want to fill in these because this is such a cute top that I think going all out would be fun. You can't really see the drawings, can you? Well, anyways, if you want to see how this turns out, I suppose I'll share it on Instagram when I embroider it and finish it. That's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day. Let me know what your favorite tarot card is, and I'll be back soon with another video. Goodbye.